What's that in the sky? It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the flaming wreckage of China's first space station. Tiangong-1, aka Heavenly Palace, was launched by China in 2011, but it was pretty much immediately plagued by technical difficulties, which culminated in March of 2016 when China completely lost communication with the satellite. So for the last 2 years, this 8.5-ton chunk of metal has been tumbling end over end, getting closer and closer to Earth. And now the European Space Agency and American corporations such as the Aerospace Corporation say they have more or less pinpointed the exact time that it will land. And this is within 36 hours of April the 1st. The European Space Agency says March 30th to April 2nd. So while they've been able to more or less pin that down, they cannot say yet as to where it will land. Because of the speed that's traveling, 17,000 miles an hour, even just a slight miscalculation or a slight change in the atmosphere means it could land pretty much anywhere on Earth, specifically between 43 degrees north and 43 degrees south in latitude, as that is the orbital range of this flying piece of scrap metal. Now, the 8.5-ton piece of metal is about the size of the school bus. It's pretty much impossible to accurately pin down exactly where it will land. However, if you do want to keep an eye on it, you can go to the Aerospace Corp's website where they have a re-entry dashboard. Now, most of the scientists are quick to point out just what a small chance of being hit by a piece of debris is. Most of it will be burned up upon re-entry. However, there will be, they say, a 1,240-mile long by 43-mile wide path of destruction as the satellite breaks up and scatters its parts all over the face of the Earth wherever it happens to land. If you do happen to be in the path of this falling satellite, they say keep away from it because there is a chance that not all of the fuel will be burned up and that the pieces that fall to Earth will be contaminated by a highly toxic and corrosive jet fuel, rocket fuel, called hydrazine. But still, they say that the chance of you actually getting hit is about 1 in a trillion. Now that's what they say your chance of getting hit. I don't know what the chances are of somebody getting hit. I could say that my chance of winning the Powerball is 1 in a trillion, but the chance that somebody will win the Powerball is significantly higher. However, they're not giving us numbers to determine exactly what that probability is. However, as you can see from this diagram, there's no shortage of cities with populations over 1 million in the potential path of this falling debris. So there is a danger that this is going to land in a populated area, mostly because the Chinese lost any ability to control the path down. If you remember the Skylab in the 1970s, that was a space station that America had crashed to the Earth after some technical malfunctions. However, they were able to more or less control the path and try to steer it away from populated areas. That's not an option with this satellite. The strange thing is that this is not the first time this year that falling space debris has been an issue for China. Let's look back to launch of the Long March 3 B carrier rocket on February 12th. Now that was launched in China, as you can see from the video, you see these booster rockets fall off. You've probably seen that before if you've seen other rocket launches in America. The space shuttle or other such rockets, they would typically do it over the ocean and the boosters would fall into the water. The SpaceX came up with this brilliant idea to have the boosters actually land themselves in this beautiful sort of ballet of technology. Well, the Chinese will not bother with such conventions. No, what they've decided to do is just let the boosters go wherever they happen to land, which happens to be this time on some peasants' houses. Now, they go ahead and just launch it over a populated countryside, and they just let the boosters fall onto the houses of the peasants below. That happened on February 12th. It happened a month earlier in January when exactly the same thing happened. And this really highlights one of the main differences between the West and China, or between America and China, and that is the value placed on a human life. You could never imagine the American government just launching a rocket and just letting the boosters fall onto the houses of the people that lived around there. You can see from the videos that people are still there. They're fairly close. They weren't evacuated. They possibly weren't even told this was going to happen. Well, this is just the mindset of the Chinese Communist government. The Chinese Communist government has a goal that it is trying to achieve, and if it has to drop some boosters on some peasants' houses, well, hey, they're just doing their part for the glory of China. And this is an important thing to consider in a time when our own internal struggles in the West mean that we're losing a hegemonic cultural dominance over the entire world, and a lot of that slack is being picked up by China. Now, this is an extremely totalitarian, communistic government. They just appointed their president, Xi Jinping, essentially dictator for life. They have essentially a total control grid, a surveillance state that tracks everybody's movement, and that even assigns them a social score based off of posts and how friendly they are to the Chinese government, determines everything from ability to buy houses or big ticket items to getting a job and everything in between. I mean, this is incredibly terrifying, totalitarian, nightmarish, dystopian stuff. This is the culture that is now supposedly reaching parity in geopolitical influence with the United States. And it's being helped along that path by globalist sympathizers in our own government who are helping them every way that they can and undermining us every way that they can, as well as collaborators in Apple and Google and other big tech companies who are ready and willing to obey the Chinese dictates in exchange for access to the massive Chinese markets. In addition, the Catholic Church says that China is the #1 place where the church can best embody its purpose. And so as China enters into the forefront of politics and geopolitics and the human experience, they are achieving what we have achieved technologically. They even brag, oh, it only took us 20 years where it took the Soviets and Americans 40 years. Technology was a major factor in what allowed the West to rise to the culturally supreme hegemonic status that it now holds, although that is crumbling. But technology wasn't the only thing. In fact, I would say the main driver of that ability to conquer, take over, and spread without the use of force, but just spread naturally, is the values and the virtues that the West espouses, or at least tries to live by, such as democracy and the value of individual life and the supremacy of free will over servitude. This is pretty much diametrically opposed to the ideas that are propagated by the one-party system that governs China, the Communist Party. And this is an important difference to highlight, this emphasis on individual human value. And the difference between China's value of individual human life and the West, or of America's value of human life, because it's not the technology that makes a people great. The value system of a society, not its technological advancements, but its virtues, that's what really gives it value and really makes it something worth fighting for and something worth upholding. And as flawed as the Western culture is, I'll be the first to admit it, I don't like a lot of what has been able to maintain this cultural hegemony that the West maintains over the rest of the world. It's still rooted in an idea of democracy, an idea of the republic, an idea of individual value and the sanctity of the human life. So as flawed and as fallen as the Western civilization has become, we still were able to achieve greatness due to our insistence on valuing individual human life and putting the value of an individual over that of a group. And with the rise of China, in conjunction with tech companies and globalist governments around the world, that is a value that is rapidly fading. So, to conclude, while you may not be in much danger of having a Chinese satellite fall on your head, the civilization and the mindset that brought about this potential catastrophe is rapidly approaching, just as rapidly as the satellite now careening towards the Earth.
InfoWars Life Brain Force Plus is our #1 selling product by leaps and bounds, and for a good reason. Going back about 5 years ago, we did research on what top selling nootropics were, what were most popular, what were best, what people liked, and we made it even stronger. Then we cut the price because leading competitors have 5 to 7 times markup. We only have 150%, and then it helps fund our operation. Well, now it's 50% off. That means we've got a 25% markup, and we've got it paired with the Real Red Pill that takes about 7 days to kick in. Brain Force takes about 30 minutes, but the two go together. It's the Mind and Body Challenge. They're both 50% off individually, or together they're 50% off and free shipping with the combo at InfoWarsLife.com. But it's got to end in a couple days because both of these bestsellers are about to sell out. InfoWarsLife.com to get your Brain Force Plus and Real Red Pill today.